Hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia Myers-Morrison and your host for Food Addiction Institute YouTubes. And I have with me Ann C., who is just a longtime friend and longtime person in recovery. Um, and she'll share about her experiences with relapse, with doing something that worked and then leaving and coming back and a 313-pound weight loss. So I'm so pleased to interview Ann C. And please, Ann, will you tell us what was it like growing up and becoming, a compulsive eater and a food addict?
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, yeah, I was thinking about this, and I remember as a child, as young as 5, kind of realizing that, and apparently even as a baby, I enjoyed my food. I enjoyed, the bottle and to be breastfed. Kind of, but I can remember when I first kind of realized that this was the pleasure, um, and that food was good and could make me feel good was when I was about 5 years old. Um, and I just enjoyed food to begin with. But I don't remember being a compulsive, eating compulsively then. I was just a small child and enjoying food. Um, but I remember when I got this, and it was, kind of, it's quite significant because it was when we didn't get sweets and things when I was a child much, kind of, I was brought up in a, kind of quite a poor background. But I remember discovering the sugar bowl. Sorry, am I allowed to use that word? Um, and tasting it and getting this real buzz. And as I say, I was only about 5, maybe 6, and it made me feel good. And then as I grew up, kind of, and that was, I think that was the start of my addiction because I was using the food um, as a way of feeling good. And I found that whenever I was sad or, a bit low, um, I would, even as a child, I mean, I was from quite a large family, and there wasn't always enough love to go around. It seemed to be, sort of, and I remember kind of sometimes feeling neglected. I mean, I had quite a straightforward background, but my mother had 5 children, so and I was the middle child. So no sooner was one baby, was I a baby and the youngest. And then, I was still a baby when my brother was born. I was only about 18 months. So there was always the sense of this, well, you've got to get, kind of attention now. And if that didn't happen, I didn't sort of question it. I just kind of assumed that that was the way it was, but it didn't make me feel good. And so I remember going back to this bowl of white stuff, and and then I used that, kind of, and sort of. So I suppose that was the first um, sense that kind of I could I could I could change my feelings by what I ate. And it wasn't until much later when I did find a program that I do today that was actually working that I realized that I'd really gone to the hard stuff really early on. That's what it was, and it kind of it's what what we avoid now, kind of. And I often sort of compare it to like heroin because the buzz was there. And anyway, I grew up. Um, and we moved around a lot, because we emigrated to the UK from Southern Ireland. So there were a lot of changes going on, sort of moving, with my dad's job. And then, and by the time I was 16, I can remember being bigger than other people, so the weight was definitely an issue early on in my teens. And I remember at 16 weighing something like 40, nearly 200 pounds. And yeah, and that was my early teens. And then I discovered dieting. I started my roller coaster of dieting mode that went on for another until I was 56, really. And I literally tried everything, but I was losing weight. I mean, I know I'm talking about the weight a lot, but it's just that's what had such a big impact on my life. And nearly ended up destroying me. But yeah, I remember at 20, kind of gradually my weight went up and up and up because I was successful at the diet treadmill. I do them, but then as soon as, kind of I started feeling as if I looked good, sort of, and that I was changing, I'd get nervous and, kind of, and I'd think, and I think, well, what do I do to make me feel good? I go back into my addictive substance, and that went on throughout my 20s and 30s. I've done so many different things. I used to take baths, salt baths. That was supposed to work. And as long as I followed what they said to eat, sort of, which was usually vegetables and things, and it would be working. But as soon as, sort of, so I was thinking, oh, if I get these salts again, so I had the food salts, I had a special wheel, and I nearly broke my stomach doing this exercise. And I never, it just made me uncomfortable. So I went back to my addictive substance to help me feel better. And I was yo-yoing, but it was gradually going up and up and up. I got married in my 30s. And because I was struggling with my weight, it affected my fertility, and it kind of prevented me becoming a mother, which I had always wanted to do. It stopped me applying for jobs, kind of, because I thought, well, I'm not good enough for that. So I always felt as if I could have done more if I had been free. But the fact was I wasn't free, because I had this addiction that followed me until I was 56. But my weight, I was trying to work it out, and, sort of, I put on about each decade, I put on more weight. I also lost weight, doing these crazy things. I did apply to have bariatric surgery, and they said, oh, but it was when it was in its infancy here. And they said, oh, we need you to lose more weight before we can do the bariatric surgery. So I agreed to have my jaws wired. And I went round for 6 months with my jaws. It's ruined my teeth, my jaws wired. And of course, it didn't work because, it worked for a short while. But I had a pair of pliers. So I used to, when I felt bad, I would cut the pliers and eat. I was supposed to eat this low calorie soup that was supposed to work. And so I tried that and that didn't work. And I remember realizing, but because in a way, it kind of escalated so much with the pliers because I thought this is so demeaning because it wasn't just I had metal clamps put over my teeth, so I looked like sort of these silver clamps. It was like a metal brace the whole time, and I would keep cutting it and things, um, and I remember realizing that it didn't matter if because they explained the bariatric surgery and sort of, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to eat as much. And I thought, actually, there's nothing that's going to work until I stop putting stuff in my mouth. But I still wasn't ready to stop. But I went off the idea of having the bariatric surgery. And then it went up some more. And I lived in this world really where I did crazy things to get hold of food. I'd eat secretly and sort of but I remember losing 6 months out of my career um because I was a social worker, and I took 6 months off because I needed to, because I had the doors wired, so it kind of robbed me of so much that I was desperate. And that was, I was, as I say, I was 56 then. So that was kind of 40 years after, my 16th birthday. And I had a friend who was doing the particular food program that I do now. And they said, I think I could do this for the rest of my life. And they're quite a sane person. Um, and I thought, well, if they're saying something like that, kind of, there must be something in it, because I respect them a lot. Um, and so I started this program, and I totally from grains, and I'm abstinent completely from grains and sugar. And I weigh and measure my food 3 times a day from this program. I commit my food each day to a 12-step sponsor, my 12-step sponsor, and I eat those meals no matter what. And that was that was that worked for me for 9 years. That was in 2006 when I joined this program, and I came out, and I was completely absent that whole time. And then I got to the point where I started questioning what I was doing. Um,
What made you start questioning what you were doing? What was happening that created a disconnect there for a bit?
well, I had some medical problems, because what I had done afterwards was, when I'd lost, because I'd lost as much weight as I've lost now, well, almost, and I decided I'd have um, stomach surgery. I had what do they call it, an apron because I was getting self-conscious about my weight and, sort of, not about my weight because I'd lost the weight, but it was the skin. And I
Yeah.
was, yeah. And I was, and I was thinking, oh, yes, that'll be really great. I'll do this. But I have to say, it didn't do me any favors at all because shortly after I I had this surgery, I healed well to begin with, and then shortly afterwards, about 6 months or a year or so, I can't remember the exact timing. Um, I I started feeling unwell. I suffered from constipation. I hadn't sort of, and I remember the surgeon even saying, um, sort of when she was examining me, she said, "Oh, I think that's a bit of bowel there." And so this was before the surgery. Anyway, I went ahead with the surgery. Um, it and I healed to begin with. I mean, I had, sort of, but I had the problems I started having was severe constipation, and this went on for about a year, and my stomach ballooned up, and I and I was still doing my food program through this as well. I got support from kind of my sponsor who saw me through that time, which was really difficult because I after a after a year of this constipation and this constant blowing up and not getting anywhere when I went to the doctor, because usually it had gone down again. And then I was rushed into hospital, and it was the end. It was at the end of a I'd been on a 12-step retreat, and I started feeling unwell, and in pain. And the friend that I'd gone with said, "Oh, kind of perhaps I should, kind of." They were taking somebody to the airport, and kind of they came back and to pick me up from where we were staying, and but by the time they came back, which wasn't long, it was only about half an hour, I was in excruciating pain, and she took me to the A&E, and they X-rayed me, and they discovered I had a twisted colon.
The A&E is like an emergency.
Accident and emergency room. Yes, yes. And they spent a few days working on me, and I ended up in intensive care. And because they tried to untwist this colon, and just gave me lots of pain relief while I was in the hospital. And that lasted a couple of days, but it kept twisting again. And then they said they would have no other option but to do a colorectal colostomy surgery, which I had done. Um, I had I struggled through. Now, did I get through that one? Yeah, and then 3 months later, it flared up again. I got a blockage. But from that day, I've had this colostomy, um, and and I think I've just got disillusioned with everything, sort of my life. I was coming to terms with my body changing, not to do with the weight loss, but to do with this thing that, I now had to have strapped to me. And yeah, and I started feeling resentful. And that's one of the things that, is I've learned so important in 12-step programs is not to be resentful, to let go of resentments and actually deal with them rather than letting them build up and build up. And I thought, well, I can do this my way, sort of, you know, it was definitely resentments that took me out, sort of. And I thought, well, I've been doing it, and and sort of, and that's the danger now. If I start listening to my own press, is that I think I know best. So I contact my sponsor if I think I know best, and she puts me straight.
Having support from someone else, from a group, from a community,
It's
however we
true.
get that additional support is so important, so important. So you went out and you were out for how long? 6 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, I've been back six now. I went out for 3 years. I say I went out. I was out and in for those 3 years. Um, I went out, thought, I can do this. I'll still weigh and measure my food. I'll stick to the program. But the problem is that I've heard this lovely expression about when I'm think I'm there, my addiction is doing press ups, in the other room, and mine was so strong when I came back because within a fortnight I weighed and measured my food, and then a little bit more went on the plate. And then I thought, oh no, I could, oh, and then a bit more. And then I thought, maybe I could try these things that I've been avoiding for the last 9 years. And that's how it went on. And, kind of, and a little bit more. And then before I knew it, within a month, I was back to binging my brains out, really. And it was even it was so bad because I still had this other condition to do with my bowels, and it was just so distressing. And I thought, oh, I've got to get back. I've got to get back to my program and the fellowship. And I didn't. Excuse me. I get brain fog.
It was, that was remembering a time that was very difficult. What was it that, was there a moment or a time or an incident that brought you back that you were willing to stay? Because there's always that desire to be normal. Always.
Mm,
I want to
mm,
be normal. And with
mhm,
the colostomy bag, am I normal? Well, normal for whom? Normal for you.
mm, yeah,
Yes. you
yeah.
know is this eating plan a normal, well, normal for whom,
Mm, mm.
etc. But if that was, there an incident that you came back and stayed now for 6 years, or did it just happen one time that it was
No, it
you
it
stayed?
definitely wasn't one time. It was. I think I realised after the first month that, sort of that I needed to. I think I was. I tried other programs. I tried programs where I could design my own food plan. Sort of, and it was all a little bit. And I kept remembering this no matter what slogan that we weigh and measure, we commit to our sponsor, and we do what we do no matter what. And um and that's my mantra today. That's my spiritual mantra. I'm going to do this no matter what. And it's in every situation. And it was, and I was thinking, well, when you were doing your no matter what, is life so great now? And it was horrendous, because I'd forgotten. Well, I can't have forgotten because it soon came back to me. But how desperately unhappy I was. And I remember this one person, and ringing them up and saying, because I did start, and I think I did about 6 months straight to begin with. I started going to meetings again, and I started going, but and then I'd lose it again. And I think it was because the I hadn't sort of picked up I wasn't using the no matter what's really. And then, after so much, kind of, it's quite embarrassing, but messing myself because of what I was eating. And, because I went straight back to after the first couple of weeks, that, I can have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it was never a little bit. And the sort of the degradation. And in a way, that's what had brought me in the first place, because in the first place, it was my mobility. I lost mobility. I was in a wheelchair, because I had put on so much weight. And I had to have hand controls from my car, and, kind of, and this time it was different. I mean, I put on a significant amount of weight while I was out. It was never as much. I think I put 140 pounds on during the 3 years I was out, and that was stopping and starting. But it was just so distressing. And I remember this person who's my sponsor today, and whenever I rang her and tried to sort of say, oh, I've feeling a failure, when I got to the end of a day, and I picked up, and they'd say, how to your next meal. And that was the most sensible thing. It was so straightforward, no messing about. Just do it for today. Commit your food, and then just remember no matter what. And that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years. So I'm
So,
really grateful for my life today.
how has your life changed in the 6 years? Because you went from your top weight was
Yeah.
462,
My top weight was 462,
and you're now at,
149 pounds.
and how tall are you?
I'm 5'7", which I think I've shrunk actually. I try to deny I've shrunk, but kind of my weight was 5'8" at one time. I've accepted 5'7", but it's probably less than that now.
This is this is aging.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what you have done in these years of abstinence. How did your life change from being in a wheelchair to
Mm,
doing many things I know you do, and I've been envious of some of them.
mm.
Please tell
Well,
us.
yeah. I suppose the first thing was they were quite simple. I mean, initially I used telephone meetings because I couldn't physically get to the meetings, and then I went to my first meeting after I'd been doing the grey sheet for three months, and even that short time, I was able to get down to a meeting and walk with the stick. Um, and I travelled. I went to New York, and I hadn't been across the Atlantic in my life. I never dreamed I would. Sort of. I'd been on holidays in Europe, and but not to the States. Sort of. I think I was probably absent for about a year, and I walked around Central Park. I remember once staying in a meeting because when you're carrying as much weight as I was, I hadn't been able to cross my legs for years, and I found myself in a meeting for my fellowship, and I remember sitting in that room in London and a kind of doing doing a qualification of my experience in that year, and I said, and as I was doing it, I crossed my legs. And I looked down and I just said, I've not been able to do that since I was about 10, been able to cross my legs. And I was envied people that could cross their legs. So I learned to cross my legs. Kind of, I ran, not very fast because I've never run for much, only a bus, kind of, I've never been into exercise in a big way. And I crossed my legs, and it was just revolutionary. And now I can't stop crossing my legs, and I've now got artificial knees, and and they say, well, it'd be better if you didn't cross your legs. I said, yeah, but I couldn't do it before, and now I can, and I want to cross my legs. It makes me feel thinner, sort of like a normal person, sort of yeah. So yeah, I've traveled to the States, kind of I've just been on a holiday in Egypt. Um, don't know where to start really, but it's just enriched my life so much just to be living in a body that looks normal, and I look normal, sort of, because for such a long time I just felt apart from everybody. It's things like squeezing through a small space and, kind of not worrying when I go to if I'm out walking, sort of when I get to a park bench and there's no room on the seat, I used to have about I used to think I needed the bench to myself, and I used to have to always have an extension on the aeroplane and, and have two seats and, all that's changed. And now I can squeeze into tight spaces and things. And it's just so freeing. And yeah, I'm getting, I'm 71 now. And, sort of I feel, I mean, as if my life's just beginning in a way, sort of has only just begun since I've been doing what I do, which, kind of, and yeah, it's incredible, really.
Will you talk just a bit about your service to others
Hmm.
and the spiritual path that you found?
Yeah. Yeah. I think service to others is, I think that's the thing I like about 12-step program, about being of service. I mean, my spiritual path is very much, it isn't theist. I don't know if that's the right word. I kind of don't, I've always struggled a bit with the word higher power, sort of, but I do have a higher power in the program, and it's the group, and it's the community, and the fact that people are doing the same things. I mean, I meditate. I like being in nature, um, but also service to others is important to me. Sort of since I've been back um, in Grey Sheet, I started, and it was interesting once I reached retirement age, even though, because of my condition and my weight, I had to give up paid work a long time ago. And I, but I work in a hospice, as a volunteer. Um, I've, I do service. I've kind of in my fellowship committee, in that I mean, I don't always sponsor other, I have sponsored other people. I've seen people through the program, but latterly I've done less of that. But I've been doing all these other things as well, because it's giving up grains and sugar, and the transformation it's given me is that it's a bridge to living, and being able to live my life, and I love my work at the hospice, and I engage with family, and and I'm there at the end of the phone when people who are struggling um, and are starting the same program I do, or anybody actually, that's because I understand where they're coming from, sort of, and what I do isn't for everybody, but kind of they have their own story too. So um, it's yeah. Sorry, I'm losing the thread again.
No, you have not lost.
You're getting my senior moments in with my giggling.
It's lovely. And thank you so much for your willingness to answer these questions and to be interviewed, to share your experience, the good and the not so good, so that
Mm,
people who are making choices can make choices that work for them, whatever they may be. And
mm,
I'm very grateful to you, and I celebrate you and your continuing weight maintenance of such a significant weight loss of 313 pounds, and the recovery, not not just the abstinence from grains and sugar, but the recovery that has brought you from a wheelchair and a very limited life to accepting a colonoscopy, that too, but the bag, and
mhm.
life with it, that you continue to do these amazing things in your life, being of service to others and living your life. And I celebrate that. So
Oh, thank you.
thank you. Thank you for being with me here. And this is foodaddictioninstitute.org. If you would like to donate, we're always happy to receive donations from those who view us, and come back and see some more. Thank you.